My love of comics has existed since I was a small child, and so has my want to make them. And when I was about 7 years old, I did make one. So let's look at it. This might be one of the worst pieces of writing ever created. Let's set the scene with this wonderful budding dragon romance. Now, these dragons make dragon babies, and the most exciting part about this is that none of them will be relevant ever again. Only one of them gets a name. An added warning is that this thing was very short and sweet. It's less than 10 pages, I do believe, and I couldn't focus on it very long in my 7-year-old brain, but this took me about a week. Lucky for you, the dialogue's about to start, so you'll get to see some of my amazing prepubescent writing. Unlucky for me is I have to try and read this. Dialogue may become confusing, so I'm going to say the character name before I say anything they're saying. A few years later, this is from the father. I'm sorry, I have to go to war. I think the mother dragon's response is the funniest thing it could have been. She literally just says, "Bye, sweetheart." Something that I've noticed after reading this is that every character is so nonchalant. Nothing ever elicits a reaction more than, "Uh-oh, your husband being drafted to war?" Not even an inconvenience. I'm also going to take a moment to point out that literally the first word in the whole story was spelt wrong and it only had 3 letters. This is just a preview of how bad my spelling was and just about what I had rattling around in that little stinky baby brain of mine. Things are escalating very quickly because next page we are already on the battlefield. There is even more chill conversation on the battlefield. Dad Dragon's all like, "Surrender now," and the other one says, no. I guess the battle scene is just skipped because we see the dad injured and the enemy flying away. The dad uses what I suppose are the telekinesis powers he has for some reason to poke the other guy in the butt on his way off. We are now about to experience an incredibly confusing switch in scenery that isn't really explained. So, I guess the dad is home now and having a conversation with unnamed child number 2. The father and irrelevant child continue to have the most nothing burger conversation I've ever seen. Also, may I mention the awful splitting of the words? Sentences just go into random bubbles. They split and like get cramped in them with no rhyme or reason. The kid says, "Dad, you're home." Great observation, Sherlock. And the dad goes, "Yeah," again with this nonchalant talking. When asked by his child, "Are you okay?" the dad simply says, "I guess so, let me talk to your mother." "Where is she?" The kid responds, "Over there." I'd like to mention now that injuries and character designs constantly change. Appearances are just suggestions. I might be absolutely clowning on a 7-year-old, but that 7-year-old was me, so I can say whatever I want. I guess now there's a family meeting now that Dad is back from his war that seemed to last about 22 minutes. The stupid little kids are excited to see their father back. I hate the babies in this. I don't think I've ever had more dislike for a character I've created before. I also don't think I've had less of a reason to dislike a character. Mom Dragon says, "Sweetheart, there you are." And at this point, I guess the dad has regressed back to baby level intellect. Because when asked what happened, he says, "In the war, they hit me." I do believe that is typically what happens in war. There does tend to be violence. What happens next is really stupid. But it is so stupid that it wraps back around to be the second funniest thing that happens in this short comic. This actually might have been peak writing. I guess there's some serious news going on because Mom and Dad have a private conversation. Mom says, like, "Oh, your wings," mentioning his injuries, and he says, "Yes." Then somehow the mom says, "Okay," to the yes, which is somehow an even worse answer. Dad says he has to go to the hospital, and now to the hospital scene. We all know what the heading is supposed to say, but it kind of looks like in the Hasbula. I do appreciate that the two things happening in the hospital are wing stuff, and for some reason putting him into like a medical-induced coma. I don't know what it has to do with any of this. I just think it's quite funny, but this isn't even the best part yet. Now we have reached my favorite part, and the funny part I previously mentioned. With all the hospital stuff out of the way, we can get to the important news. The dad says that they won the war, only for the mother to reply, "I heard there's a new war." The very next page, we get the bomb drop that the dad has to go back to fight in the new war. He got back like 2 minutes ago. 90% of this comic has literally just been the dad coming to and from war. You know what they say, all good things must come to an end. That doesn't apply to this comic. This comic was really, really bad. But coincidentally, this also has to end. For the first time in this godforsaken piece of writing, one of the practically non-existent children does something. She asks to go and play outside. This is where things take a turn for the incredibly amusing. Yes, the baby literally gets hit with a big cartoon nuke and explodes. But don't worry, Mom Chalant is here to have as nothing of a reaction as usual. Literally just asking, "Are you okay? Dude, your baby just got hit by a literal nuke. You are lucky you are not talking to smithereens right now, bro. What do you mean, are you okay?" Don't worry, the dragon ambulance comes and scoops up baby bomb survivor. Hospitals seem to be a recurring theme in this. The mother of extreme indifference seems to have a feeling for the first time and asks if she can see her daughter in the hospital. The doctor says, "You can." We see the kid like in a hospital bed hooked up to a bunch of stuff. The mom asks how she's doing, and the doctor does the most useless doctor move ever. World's worst doctor, and goes, "You go look at her." Most confusedly, is that it? There is no more. It literally just ends with one of the kids getting hit with a bomb and ending up in the hospital. 7-year-old me wrote a book where the entire conflict was that there's some unseen war and the child ends up in a hospital. So that is the end of this video. I'm sorry for really bad microphone sounds. I'm just recording it with the iPad microphone and not a thing. But let me know if it would be fun to do a reimagining of this or a rewrite with like my brain when I'm not 7 years old. So that's it.